Assalamu alaikum, and we are back with another edition of the Youthcast live on Inspire FM. It is the 7th of July, Thursday, and we've got 5 lovely guests here, brilliant guests. We've got Tariq.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks, it's very nice to be here again.
Usual on the show. We've got a newcomer who's going to be a regular presenter here on the Youthcast. We've got Amar.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
And we've got 3 brilliant guests for our topic today surrounding climate change and how the youth can get involved. So we've got Raheed with us.
Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for inviting us on the show.
Absolutely. My pleasure. We've got Hannah with us, I believe.
Hamna.
Hamna, sorry.
All good. No worries.
And we've got Ellie, I believe.
Hi, good to be here.
Absolutely. So our topic for today is about the youth and how we can get involved with climate change. But before that, we've got Raheed with us here from the Youth Network, I believe. So just introduce yourself and introduce what the Youth Network is actually about.
Thank you so much for inviting us on the show. So Youth Network is a youth-led organization, and essentially what we do is we speak to young people about the issues and challenges that they feel are really important to them in Luton. And sort of coming out of the pandemic, and pandemic was tough for everyone, right? And so we decided that coming out of the pandemic in sort of December, that ourselves and our youth ambassadors really wanted to do something for the, for all of 2022. And we thought that the climate crisis was really important for us to get involved with. And essentially what we thought was we wanted to try and make a bit of a bang with this, pardon the pun, and sort of get as many people involved as possible. So there's a few things. First of all, from a faith-based point of view, God Almighty tells us that, that we have been given something very pure and precious, which is our earth.
Absolutely.
And it's really important and incumbent on us as Muslims, and just as whether you're religious or not, but particularly us as Muslims, it's really incumbent on us that we think very specifically about being custodians of the earth and what has been given to us, and that's of vital importance. And there's so many ayat in the Quran. There's so many stories of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, how he was really careful of things like the water we have, the food we have, the land that we've been given. And so we thought as young people, and the guys will talk about it much more than I, but we as young people, we really feel that as young people with the climate crises going on, that we really need to do something. And actually, you guys have been doing a lot of really, really good work, particularly with your Bangladeshi appeal for the floods in Sylhet. I'm just going to give you one example, right? So the majority of us here have a footprint in South Asia, right?
Yeah.
So 100 years ago, here's a quick teaser question. 100 years ago, how often do you think the temperature in a country like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka would hit 50 degrees? About 100 years ago. How many times in a year?
How many times in a year?
Yeah.
3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay. So it's actually once.
Once.
Yeah. And how often do you think that would happen? How often 100 years ago would you get that temperature? So would it be every year, every 5 years, every 10 years, every 50 years, 100 years, every 1,000 years?
I'm going to say 5.
Yeah,
okay.
That sounds fair. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it was actually every 100 years the temperature would hit 50 degrees. Right?
Crazy.
But now, right now, the temperature will hit 50 degrees or more than one occasion. On average, the worst case scenario is every 3 years.
Wow.
Every 3 years, the temperature will hit 50. Okay. So what does?
Time.
Yeah. So it's gone from 100 years. It used to happen every 100 years, and now with climate change, it actually happens every 3 years. Not only does it happen every 3 years, it happens many times every 3 years. Now, if you think about the South Asian community, and think about, it's a lot of people of faith in that part of the world. About 75 to 80% of all of the economy is to do with agriculture.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
It's pretty destructive.
Very destructive. Very destructive. And the other thing is from our point of view, if you live in a really hot country, right, you can turn the air conditioning on, you can go indoors. You can't do that in poor countries.
Yeah,
it just doesn't happen. So actually, the death and destruction that's happening is really important. But who are the people who've created that? system. The people who've created that system is rich and wealthy countries, the first world countries, if you like, and we live in luxury.
Yeah.
So actually the impact of our actions is happening right now in our forefathers' countries. So we
Yeah.
should feel that, because this is where we've got brothers, sisters, cousins, parents, grandparents, great grandparents still alive in these countries. What we're doing affects them. So I just want to set the scene a little bit, and I'm not going to talk too much about the climate conference because the guys will do that, but we're pushing for change, and we're pushing for change here because a local impact has a global impact.
I think it's good what you're saying about being a custodian as well, as obviously Muslims and just generally as people who should be custodians of our earth. Like you're saying, comparing, we live in this fairly luxurious lifestyle compared to some other people, and us having a negative effect on these people whose whole livelihood is surrounded around agriculture. We should feel a great deal of responsibility for our actions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's mentioned so many times in the Quran. It's mentioned so many times in the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is that, you know, we need to be really careful about what we have been given. And when we think about it, is we're going to be asked about this as much as, you know, because so it's a sadaqah, right? It's an act of charity to help somebody. And we know there's so many times, you know, you say even doing a simple thing like giving somebody water, giving somebody food. How can you give somebody water or food if there is no water or food?
Yeah.
It's impossible. So actually what we've done is we've done something much worse, is that we have actually stopped ourselves from having the ability to do that because we've destroyed the goodness of what's given to us. But whether you believe in God or not or whatever, it's still not a good thing to do. And Ellie here will tell you a lot about sort of like natural biodiversity, about the sort of natural beauty and you know, the animals and the wildlife that we've got, and that's really important. So I'll stop talking there because the guys have got much more to say than I have.
So we have Hamna, I believe, with us. Would you like to tell us a bit more about what you do and how you've been getting involved with this youth climate conference?
Okay, so I'm actually a climate ambassador. So I'm going to be training a lot of the delegates that are going to be coming into our conference. These are young people, literally around the ages of 11 to 25. So they're pretty young people, you know. These are high schoolers and, you know, people who've just left sixth form. Some of them have just finished their GCSEs. Some of them have just finished their A-levels. A real good mix of young people. And what's going to happen is we're going to train them in 4 workshops. So basically, these workshops are going to be for aviation, transport, conservation and biodiversity, and then also housing and energy. So these are kind of the main focus areas for our climate conference, because these are the main contributors to climate change. You know, your transport, you know, what can we do to make sure that our transport isn't having such a massive impact? You know, maybe it's because we're flying too often, or maybe it's because, you know, the cars that we use, we're just driving all the time everywhere. You know, what can we do ourselves to make these small little changes to, you know, have a less impact on, you know, climate change?
Yeah.
You also have some of the other workshops, which will include, like, for example, housing and energy. You know, you might think, okay, how does housing relate into climate change? But you're thinking your house is powered by how many things? You know, you have a phone, you have, you know, all your kitchen appliances, your gas, your heating, your boilers, everything. Where is this energy coming from? You know, that's coming from fossil fuels. And it's like, even if you have solar panels and stuff like that, is like, you know, how much of your house is actually being powered by these solar panels? You know, half of it probably isn't. Most of it is still coming from fossil fuels. So even though you're making a massive change, you know, you're buying this expensive solar panel, has it really made a difference? So it's stuff like that we can, you know, make changes to. You know, if we start, you know, bringing more people into our houses, if we make sure that our houses are well insulated in the first place, we won't have to rely so much on these external energy sources.
Yeah, I think it's been good about you saying, you know, instilling this when people are young as well, lead to them developing these habits later on in life when they're adults, you know, realizing the importance of where the energy comes from, how much they're using, what ways they can sort of benefit the climate in general by sort of not distancing themselves from using fossil fuels. So yeah, I think that's good.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, we're an island. And I know Boris Johnson has gone now. Bye, Boris. But at the end of the day, I think it was about a year ago during COP26. He said he wanted the UK, and it was a good thing that he said. He said he wants the UK to be the Saudi Arabia of wind power. That's great. That's great because we're an island. We've got wind all around us from the sea, right? Why is it taking us so long to do that? Why are we still purchasing so much oil and gas from other places? That makes no sense. And also, I just want to check with you guys here, actually. In fact, all 5 of you. Do any of you pay the energy bills at home?
No.
Okay.
No.
So with the global pressures on gas and oil, how much do you think the price of your energy is going up or down in the next year?
Up.
Up.
Yeah.
Okay. Any ideas how much it's going to go up in the next year?
I've heard it's very, very bad for people who are paying these energy bills.
How much do you think it's going to be? Let's say, for example, you were the homeowners, right?
Right.
How much do you think your gas or energy bill would be? Would be going up this year?
Double?
Double from what to what?
I don't really know a figure. I'm not sure.
Okay, so the average energy price for a house is about £1,500 a year.
Yeah.
It's actually
double,
it's actually going up by £3,000. So it's going up about
Oh.
4 times the amount,
Wow.
which is
That's dramatic.
Crazy.
and, yeah. So do you know what I mean? If Boris was actually right and he managed to make sort of like the UK a leading energy supply, wouldn't that be an amazing thing?
Yeah.
That actually it'd be really helpful for us, and we could do so much with it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that really is pretty shocking. I mean, none of us here pay our household bills, but it is very scary. I mean, a lot of our parents here probably provide for us, and we learn that it's going up by 4 times. That's crazy, and 4 times by such a substantial amount. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
I don't
Tarek,
think annual salaries are increasing either, so it's becoming harder for others as well. So it's
Really
becoming-
good point.
Yeah,
Really good
biggest
point.
struggle.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's not just that, it's not just the prices as well. I think being less reliant in general during high prices or not, being less reliant on any outside factors is one of the first things that any person who wants to be stable, wants to have a stable, prosperous country, wants to make sure that they're less reliant on people around them. Because you can, for example, the war in Ukraine, although the UK didn't have a say in whether or not that happened, it greatly affected all of us. Same with anything else that happens. It means that the UK has to partner with and aid regions and places which aren't particularly friendly. And I think being more reliant on ourselves by things
Yeah.
like wind power,
self-sustainability.
self-sustainability is not only more sustainable for the earth and for the environment, but for us as a country as well, and us as individuals, as was said.
That's a
good
great point. That's a great point in terms of our global partnerships and who we should be friends with and where our money comes from and the sorts of relationships we have.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
It's a really good point. So moving on to the next section, we want to talk more about the responsibility that the youth have for taking climate action. So we have the youth here with us,
Yeah.
and we also have some ambassadors here who can maybe explain a bit more about how, maybe for the youth who are listening as well, what actions we can take.
So I think, obviously, I'm not a youth ambassador or climate ambassador. So from my current understanding, I'm sure the climate ambassadors today were going to teach me something. I think it's important that, of course, we all understand, we've all been told the youth are the future and such. And it's sometimes hard as a young person to imagine yourself actually being heads of countries and heads of households and heads of communities. But eventually,
It's inevitable.
inevitably, we will be that. So it's important that if we understand this now, perhaps when young people, generally speaking, are more open, they're more able to look at new ideas in different ways. I think if we understand this now, it will allow us to really take on that role of when we're older in a better way that would allow us to really make sure that we take care of and are good custodians of the UK.
Brilliant.
Guys, do you want to explain why our conference has got the strap lines it has, just based upon what Tarek just said and talking about the youth of tomorrow?
I think that one of the reasons we have this conference is because it can seem like our future is kind of gloomy and doomy, and we're alone in a sense. But I think when we have support from people around us, we're more likely to take those steps. So I think it can seem kind of daunting to think that we're going to be the leaders in the future. But first, we kind of have to take a step back and kind of see what's around us. So it can be as small as just going on a walk in the woods or a field, because if we want to conserve our world for the people and the animals, then we first have to appreciate it. And we're not going to appreciate it if we're stuck living so fast, like on our phones, trying to make money and do things like that. We actually have to take it all in and appreciate it.
Yeah, so our strapline is tomorrow's future today. So you can make small changes today in order to impact your future tomorrow. Just going back to the fact that you're saying that why are you getting young people involved? The reason why we're bringing young people in is because in a few years' time they're going to become adults. It goes really, really fast. You're going to go from the beginning of sixth form all the way to the end, and you're suddenly having to make really big decisions on your apartment, your house, where your food's going to come from. And our basic principle is that we want to make sure that we engage the youth as much as we can with workshops and experience and employability skills, and not even just that, but just educating them enough to make sure that they can make a change. It's really helpful because that's impacting them. When they grow up, they'll make a family maybe, and they can impact other people. They can influence their friends. Even as Ellie said, we are we're social animals. We look around and we see what other people are doing, and we copy it. So even if you have certain friends who are maybe they're not too sustainable, maybe they don't really think that much, just by you trying something and you making a big step into changes, then other people will too. And that's small changes, like for example using a reusable bottle instead of using a plastic bottle, like a single-use bottle. That's going to save the environment. Small steps, but important steps that need to be taken.
Absolutely. And we actually, thanks for that, guys. That's really, really helpful. So as Ellie said, and as Hamna both said, we're social animals. You can't just talk about it, you've got to do it. And we very specifically made a conscious decision. And we were talking about this earlier on, and everybody keeps saying the youth of future of tomorrow, the youth of future of tomorrow, youth. And I'm thinking, hang on, that doesn't make sense. Why do we wait for tomorrow? You need to bring tomorrow here. So the strapline for our conference actually is tomorrow's future today. Because if we don't act upon climate today, tomorrow's not going to be good enough. It's just, it won't be good enough. And we can see that it's already like that. So we need to act now. You guys need to act now. Older people need to listen to you now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. What are you doing right now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, if I can just make a slightly religious analogy. Your prayer is no good. Everyone focuses on the prayer, right? Your prayer is no good unless you've got the precursor to prayer, which is what?
Wudu.
Which is wudu.
Yeah.
So you need to get your wudu right. So you can't wait until tomorrow until you fix today. And so that's why we're saying, people need to come to our Youth Climate Conference. Monday the 11th of July is for anyone up to the age of 16. Anyone over the age of 16 is Tuesday the 12th of July. A few things about it. It's completely free. These guys are running it all. They've been trained up by the airport company, by the University of Bedfordshire, by Luton Council, by the Culture Trust, and by other specialists. So these guys have been trained up. They're going to deliver all the workshops. We're not doing anything. It's completely free. It's completely zero carbon. So there's not going to be any plastics there. You'll learn how to measure your carbon footprint. We'll feed you for free a vegan meal or a halal meal. really couldn't be any better. And it's up at Stockwood Discovery Centre. When you go to Stockwood Discovery Centre, have you guys been to Stockwood?
Yeah.
So Stockwood's really
Yeah.
cool. You've got different areas. So you've got the transport areas. We're going to go over the history of transport, like Hamna said. We've got the airplane actually goes over Stockwood Discovery Centre. So we're going to have an aviation workshop right there discussing about airport expansion. There's the conservation area, which is in the fernery, which is in the conservatory with all the medicinal plants. You look at the history of plants and animals around you. And the last one is housing and energy. Housing and energy, there's a place there where there's the Roman house areas, and it's all, it looks like a courtyard, but it doesn't look like a courtyard. It is a courtyard. And like you can see the history of energy, so steam and coal and all these amazing things. So it's like you're in school, but it's run by these guys, and you're on your feet. It's a completely different way of doing education. So you guys need to be there.
Yeah.
I think that's good as well.
I think I will go.
Sounds really
I'm
engaging
excited.
as well, being on foot.
So the thing is, from our point of view, we've recruited 14 people. They're not volunteers, by the way. They're getting paid. So we believe, again, from an Islamic principle, it's an amana. If volunteering is great, but if there's money on the table, look, man's got to eat, right? So why not? And we're talking about the cost of energy. Well, any of you guys got your driver's license, or you're close to it?
Getting there.
Getting there. Okay.
Getting there.
So petrol's expensive, right?
Yeah.
Petrol is expensive.
So just think about it. Yeah, so Honda's a new driver, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing. So, we really want to, our ethos is very much in terms of treating young people the way with respect, with dignity. When you treat people with respect and dignity, and we're talking about something important like climate, you'll treat your climate with respect and dignity as well. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah.
I think that's good as well. Like the other point about going on walks in the forest, you're being immersed with nature around you. You can appreciate these things more. Being outside and appreciating maybe the damage that these different areas, in terms of airplanes, vehicles, anything like that, which does have significant negative effects on our environment. Being immersed in those sort of environments can educate you better than sitting in a room and having a slideshow in front of you. So I think it's a really good initiative.
A slideshow about the environment.
Yeah.
Go to the environment, guys.
I think related to all of this, and sort of something that a lot of people have touched upon, I just want to give my own piece on it, is when you're in the environment, you get to actually, it's quite touching when you see beautiful scene and then you see a piece of plastic. Or I think it was researchers were looking into the deepest parts of the ocean, and what they found at the bottom of the deepest part, that no person had ever been there, no camera had ever been there. They found a plastic bag, and it had preceded all of us. It had gotten there before any of us, and no one knows who made that plastic bag, how it got there. But at some point, that plastic had preceded us, and it's gonna stay there centuries probably after we're all dead. And it's important to look at that and just think to yourself, I think when I see that sort of thing, I think I remind myself of a ayah in the Quran. So of which of the favors of your Lord are you denying? These are the favors that your Lord has given you, and you are denying them. You are polluting them. You are harming them. When you know what you're doing, and you know that it is incredibly damaging to the places that you enjoy.
Yeah, it links back to the idea of being custodians of the earth. It is our job ultimately. It doesn't matter what sort of background you're from, ultimately religious, non-religious, it is our background to, it is our responsibility to look around us and realize the effects that we're having on the community. Even if it's not primarily us, it could be secondary ways that we're affecting the environment. So I think this youth conference is brilliant, and definitely will try my best to attend. We've got Amar with us, who is the youngest here. What's your perspective on everything we've been talking?
I think it's very important, especially for youth, because generally they look up at all these men and women who are there on TV and stuff talking about why it's important, but then they're at home sitting on the couch or whatever, I don't know, playing Xbox or PlayStation, and they're just thinking about, oh yeah, it's important, but I've got better stuff to do, and then you don't really think about it. And then once you think about it, you realize about the impact that it has on us because for us, it gives us greater impact for when we're older. Because right now, yeah, it sounds bad, but if we don't do anything when we're older, it's just going to get worse. And then that goes on for future generations. So I think what they're doing is really, really good. And yeah, I'll try to come too.
I think it's a brilliant initiative. We have 30 seconds until the break. So any last words you'd like to mention about the conference happening?
Give them the dates. Tell them when it is.
Okay, so if you're 11 to 17, so you've just finished your GCSEs, you can come on Monday the 11th. And if you are 18 plus, or you've just finished sixth form, or you're in first year, then you can come on Tuesday the 12th, Stockwood Discovery Centre.
Stockwood Park, be there. See you after the break.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Husamuddin Ali and you are listening to Inspire 105.1 FM.
Inspire Eid is here, Inspire Eid is here. With his £1, £2 cheap rides, if you bring an event, I'll make you smile. Free entry for you and me, and free parking, bring uncle and auntie. Some amazing food for us all to eat, some great activities, oh what a treat. A huge stage show to top it off, so come to Lucy Park, oh ho ho ho. 9th and 10th of July, from 12 p.m. till 8. Oh, ho, ho.
अगर आप सिक्योरिटी के काम में दिलचस्पी रखते हैं तो आज ही एजिस ट्रेनिंग के तजुर्बाकार माहिरीन से राब्ता कीजिए। हम फराहम कर रहे हैं डोर सुपरवाइजर कोर्सेज, फर्स्ट एड ट्रेनिंग, SIA लाइसेंस के रिन्यू के लिए टॉप अप कोर्सेज के साथ साथ ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज भी दस्तयाब हैं। अपने करियर का आगाज लुटन के मकामी तजुर्बाकार और काबिल इत्मीनान इदारे से कीजिए और हमारे साथ जॉब भी अप्लाई कीजिए। आज ही विजिट कीजिए www.agistraining.co या फिर कॉल कीजिए 03300501010। एड्रेस यूनिट A, Kingsway Industrial Estate, Luton, LU1 1LP. Aegis, security की दुनिया का मोतबर नाम।
How many times have you needed urgent medical supplies but don't know where to go? At Harris Pharmacy, we take pride in delivering a high-level healthcare to our community. This is why we have services such as private one-to-one consultation, free prescription ordering from GP and delivery to your home, mobility aids such as providing wheelchairs and many other items for everyday use. Call us today on free phone 0800 458 2850 to discuss your medical needs. We are open from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Harris Pharmacy, 165 A/B, Dunstable Road, Luton.
For specialist immigration services, the people to talk to settle a family member in the UK, M&K Solicitors. For all your legal solutions for family, personal injury, clinical negligence, civil and property law, M&K Solicitors. Internationally recognised, M&K Solicitors offer free advice on Friday afternoon in Luton and now Wednesdays in Birmingham too. For local legal services you can rely on, call 01582 732 503 or click on mnksolicitors.com. Your first consultation is free.
Introducing the Inkwell Hub. We teach Quran, Islamic history, and modernity, amongst various other subjects, to secondary school students, both male and female. Our classes are held twice a week in person and delivered by qualified teachers, allowing your children to manage both Islamic education and after-school clubs. Our teaching is complemented with a state-of-the-art online portal for homework, quizzes, and lesson materials. Learn more about us on our website at theinkwellhub.co.uk.
Qurbani holds a special place in Islam. It's stressed upon in the Quran and is a reminder of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam's devotion and obedience. Whoever made a Qurbani with all sincerity, the act of sacrifice will protect him from hellfire. Fulfill the Sunnah, feed the poor in Gaza, Syria, Pakistan, Africa and Yemen and reap the reward. Help keep families together this Eid and call 0114 365 4454 or visit familiesrelief.org. Limited allocation, so order yours now.
Allah does not look at your appearance or your possessions, but He looks at your heart and your deeds. Reported by Muslim.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Yes, it is 7:30 and apologies for that. It is 7:30 and we are back with the Youthcast. We've got Tariq here and we've got Amar with us.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Our guests have unfortunately left us, but I think their message was brilliant.
Yeah.
The message was brilliant about how the youth can get involved with climate-related activities. I think the idea of having different workshops, being on foot is really great because I mean we've all seen assemblies maybe in school or colleges where they've tried to educate us about the environment and they're pretty boring, but I think it's very engaging if you're on foot and you're looking at all these workshops and looking firsthand at the effects of climate change, especially because of the location where you have the planes flying overhead, etc. I think it's really good. So us here in the studio will definitely try our best to head down there, inshallah, God willing. Any youth who are listening, be sure to attend as well on the 11th and 12th of July, Stockwood Discovery Centre.
9:30 to 3:30.
9:30 to 3:30. Right. Our first segment of the show is complete. It was all about the climate. Now let's talk about the climate of this country. They like what I did. So it's been a very entertaining couple of days, I could say.
Definitely.
Definitely entertaining, definitely interesting, and quite unexpected. I mean, it was expected that some sort of political the tension was going to be released soon, but I mean, like this in like 2 days.
This is completely unprecedented. This scale of resignations and events it's historic, and it's definitely something that we're going to remember and something that our grandkids are going to be asking us about.
I remember today in the history was they just cut the lesson halfway through just to watch Boris Johnson on TV.
So we cut our lessons today. They just put it on TV quickly, watch him resign.
I got the news on my phone, and I was. I mean, they said that they expected a resignation, but he was pretty quick with it. To the delight of some people and to the dismay of others. Absolutely. So, what are your views, guys? What do you think have been happening? So, let's start from the beginning, when the members of the cabinet started resigning.
I think when I heard of that, I think of course there was a lot of tension, as you spoke about, a lot of political tension. But when the big chancellors, the big members of cabinet started resigning, so it was I believe it was Rishi Sunak and
Sajid
Javid, that's it, who resigned in that one day. When I read that and I saw that, I immediately assumed that Boris Johnson would obviously resign that same day, but of course Boris Johnson would never is always exceeding your expectations, and he would always make sure that he's always more determined than you perhaps give him credit for, and he lasted an extra day or so. Despite a lot more pressure. So that's was my thoughts.
Yeah. I think as soon as I heard the news, I knew that it wasn't long before Boris Johnson was also going to cut his prime ministerial rule short, because obviously in the news the reasonings for Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, and Sajid Javid leaving was because they had sort of turned against and lost faith and trust in their prime minister. I mean, for someone that they've sort of stuck by for so long throughout the pandemic, all these sort of issues that the country has been facing, and it was just so sudden, it was pretty shocking, and it was sort of inevitable that we would see Boris Johnson outside number 10 Downing Street giving his resignation speech.
It's also the third prime minister in a row that's resigned.
Yes, I think
it's not looking good.
I think in general for democracies and large democracies around the globe, it's been a very, very tumultuous and very fluctuating last 5 years.
Yeah, I believe first it was David Cameron. Then
Theresa May.
He left, I believe, because he didn't want to get involved in Brexit, so he decided to.
Although he caused it.
Arguably. Then Theresa May, That's
she couldn't get Brexit done.
she couldn't hack it.
Yeah,
Then Boris Johnson came in. He made a
activist COVID as well.
mishmash of very badly handled way he
Yeah, I think
deals with COVID.
the scandals are
The
absolutely
scandals,
uncountable. There's,
crazy.
way
I
too
don't think
many
we've
of them.
seen scandals like that on that scale ever. Well, from my short lifespan, I don't think I've ever seen something like that. I mean, a prime minister inadvertently breaking the law
I know.
while he was promoting those laws, and him being in such a place of high power, I think is sort of inexcusable. It was.
I think it's definitely it's interesting whether or not they're necessarily negligent or inadvertent, if that makes sense. So I think from my perspective, I think there's such a point where even if it is inadvertent, it's greatly negligent, and it's not something that should occur ever.
Yeah, and then after, so carrying on this timeline of drama that's been happening, Michael Gove, I believe, was fired for rebelling against the prime minister.
Yeah. He asked the prime minister to resign, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to process now what was the actual point of him getting fired, because the prime minister had the intention of resigning anyway, but that happened. And then I didn't really watch with too much attention his speech, but
I just watched the first 10 minutes.
I think I did watch it all. It was very
straight to the point.
I would disagree. Because it's interesting. He didn't say the word resignation.
No.
He didn't say he continued to solely put the blame on others in a way. So he there wasn't a sorry. There wasn't a I did not fulfill my obligations. It was all I got Brexit done.
Theresa May's speech, on the contrary, was very.
Yeah, she was crying, if I believe.
She feel like she failed the country, which fair enough. You know, I've got some respect for her for doing that. You know.
Yeah.
Admitting that she didn't fulfill her job, as you know, she was voted in to do so, but
that's not,
Boris Johnson will be Boris Johnson. Yeah. So what other highlights do you have from his speech? What other highlights you have from his speech? So which stuck out for you? Because I didn't really watch too much of it.
I think some other things that stuck out is he's still very, very adamant that he was doing his job. He was doing what he was elected to do. He constantly mentioned his election win in 2019, and he was very adamant that he portrayed this narrative of I was voted in, all my MPs rebelled, and I can no longer do the job. It's not my fault though.
It's the MP's fault.
Okay, do whatever you want now.
All right.
That was the sort of narrative that was placed.
I need to withdraw my statement.
I think it's a very interesting narrative as well. I think it's. I don't think it's very. How can I say? I don't think it's very proactive, considering that all these scandals, you could say, that have been coming at him, have been proven to be completely and 100% true.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's trying to avoid now. I don't know why he's trying to not sort of admit to the mistakes that he has done. But it's just maybe him maybe something about his pride or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
I believe his pride has been hurt.
Pride and arrogance.
The people that he thought that were closest to him have rebelled against him, and he's been left with no choice to resign.
Exactly.
But I mean, it just shows you the character of the man.
Yeah.
That he's still not willing to admit to anything that he's done.
Perhaps not just the character of the man, but the character of the system that produced him as well.
That's a good point. That's a
you have to take into account. I mean, the history of the man himself is absolutely littered with mistakes, and not mistakes, but morally abhorrent actions.
That's a good point.
From being part of all sorts of clubs, from his time at Oxford to cheating on all his wives, and having an undisclosed amount of children, to all sorts of other factors. And I think it's not particularly surprising that a man who went in with this sort of track record came out with the same sort of track record. Perhaps that's an interesting question as to why a man like that was voted in, or why a man like that was had the support for so long.
Him being London mayor as well.
Yeah,
he was originally London mayor. I think it was time for him to resign. I mean, if he didn't resign, then there would the elections are going to come up, and then people are just going to go against the Conservative Party because they've got Boris Johnson as the Prime Minister at the moment, and obviously, according to many people, he's not doing a very good job at it. So I think it was about time that he actually did resign because of the elections and things coming up.
Yeah, that's a good point. So there's a couple of reasons that we've got here as to why he's been forced to resign in a way. One being a very important point that we actually haven't mentioned yet, the cost of living crisis. That's a very important point. Maybe that's also a point as to why Rishi Sunak has been has thought that it is time for him to leave. So inflation has risen sharply to the current rate of 9.1%.
Yeah, and I believe and it's likely to continue rising if my understanding is correct.
Likely to continue to rise. And while the government has been taking some steps, it also went ahead with a tax rise in April. I've also heard recently that there will be another tax rise due soon.
Depends. I think the new chancellor that Boris Johnson appointed 2 days ago after Rishi Sunak left, to the same chancellor who was appointed by Boris Johnson only 2 days ago, then called for Boris Johnson to resign. He's quite adamant on tax cuts, so that remains to be seen. It remains to be seen how that's going to work. But it was definitely planned. So it's very interesting how the Conservative Party and Boris Johnson have shied away from, rather than taking more proactive steps or innovative, imaginative steps to try and deal with the cost of living crisis. They sort of went directly to the perhaps even the worst possible solution of just making it worse by raising taxes instead of taking more proactive measures which will help people directly. I think that wasn't entirely true. I think if you look through the pandemic, Rishi Sunak didn't do too badly in creating new ways of stimulating the economy, but it was short-lived. The imaginative, creative thinking seemed to end as the pandemic ended.
And also, moving on from the cost of living crisis, there's been a few scandals within Parliament in relation to members of the Conservative Party who have done questionable things, we'll say, during their time in Parliament and as being a member of the Conservative Party. And that has also led to people, members of his party, losing confidence in Boris Johnson, members of the public losing confidence, and etc., etc. So one being the Chris Pincher affair.
Yeah.
So that is a very
I think
interesting
that was
topic.
the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris Pincher, a little bit of a background. We won't go too in detail about what has happened.
Yeah.
But there's been some accusations against him, which some members of the Conservative Party, particularly Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak, I'd say, have been aware that the Prime Minister has actually been supporting and promoting his rankings, you could say, in the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
And it's been said that Boris Johnson has known for years about the behavioural traits of said MP.
Yeah, I think there was inappropriate behaviour. That my understanding is it was upheld. In fact, by the parliamentary committees and such. So it was found to have substantiated claims of, and that it was likely true. And nevertheless, he was promoted to deputy chief whip. Which is a role in charge of welfare, which is
worrying,
terribly, devastatingly, and saddeningly ironic.
Yeah. So it says, first, Downing Street said Mr. Johnson was not aware of said specific allegations about Mr. Pincher before appointing him as Deputy Chief Whip in February. Ministers later reiterated this line, even though it turned out to be inaccurate. On the 4th of July, the BBC reported Mr. Johnson had been aware of a formal complaint. The next day, a former civil servant, Lord MacDonald, said the Prime Minister had been told of the complaint in person And Mr. Johnson then admitted he had been told in 2019 and apologized for appointing Mr. Pincher as deputy whip. That is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
2019 is a long time.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it though.
It feels like, yeah, it doesn't feel like it, but it was quite a while ago. Seems like yesterday. But since then, said MP and deputy chief whip has been accused of a flurry of allegations, some of which have been proven true and actually been directly communicated to Boris Johnson, and then him having the faith and trust to appoint him as in such a special and skill required. You know, you need a lot of emotional intelligence also related to being in charge of welfare. It's pretty shocking and pretty understandable as to why some MPs would rebel against him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Boris Johnson. I mean, there's first the party, and then now
the party is
there's
the one that everyone knows. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone knows about the party, and then this came out as well. I think he was just asking, like genuinely just asking for this to happen to him.
Yeah, I mean,
the party happened, and then this came out. I think, like if you wanted a better track record, as you said earlier, he should have just either told the truth or like shouldn't have promoted the guy.
Yeah, it's not even just like the party. The party is a good point, and then the party, the denial, and then them proving that it happened.
I think that's even worse because first and foremost, within any person in public office, you want some level of trust. How anyone could have trusted Boris Johnson, to me, is inconceivable. But to some people who had already trusted him, I think seeing that trust betrayed time and time again has meant that not only have they lost faith in Boris Johnson himself, but also in the Conservative Party, but also in politics and government in general. I think the polling rates now of trust in the government and trust in policies that the government create is the lowest it's been in a while, and very understandably so. It's very evidently the case that certain members of parliament, certain prime ministers have not had the utmost integrity and utmost respect for the job that they're doing, and I think people are fed up. The MPs were obviously fed up, and that's why they resigned.
I mean, if the MPs are fed up, then it's pretty evident because
people were already fed up to begin with for a long time.
Absolutely.
I think now.
I think if the MPs are fed up, it's like a lost straw because those are the people that are his biggest supporters and promoters, you could say, of his Conservative Party and his questionable actions. But moving forward as to what's the next steps? So we've got this resignation of the Prime Minister. What's going to happen next? So what's been
in November time, is it, when he's going to step down?
I think October time.
October, November time.
October. Yeah, he's going to step down from Prime Minister, but at the moment he's just stepped down from head of Conservative.
I think for now he's remaining until they found the next head.
I think they're just like trying to like do this one properly because like they had Theresa May, they had Boris Johnson. I think Boris Johnson was put in quite a short amount of time, if I'm correct. I think they're just trying to space this one out, just make sure they get it right this time.
Yeah, Boris Johnson was put into as Prime Minister 2 months after Theresa May resigned.
Yeah.
So it was pretty quick in terms of them finding a new suitable leader. But some people are saying that it could happen even quicker because there's a dire need for someone new to steer the ship, 100%. You could say.
Yeah.
So some people saying that, or it has been suggested that the process could last until October, although it could be much shorter. Former Conservative Prime Minister Sir John Major said it would be unwise for Mr. Johnson to stay in office for 3 months. So
I think I'd agree with Sir John Major there. Probably not much else.
Not much else, but you'll agree with him there. Yeah, I agree with him there as well. So some Conservative MPs have suggested the timetable for the leadership election could be shortened and completed in a few weeks. So how do the Conservatives elect a new leader? Once a leader has stood down, an election for a new party leader is triggered. Under the current rules, candidates need the support of 8 Conservative MPs to stand. Once all the candidates have declared, if there are more than 2 candidates, Tory MPs will hold a series of votes until only 2 remain. So that is the process of a new leader being elected, and then ultimately we will have a new prime minister. So there have been some options floating around, possibly about who could be elected, and from my personal perspective, it's not looking promising.
Yeah, I think
to say the least.
I think there's not much, in my own personal opinion, in my own personal understanding. I don't think that whoever replaces Boris Johnson, although might have more apparent or might be more shameful of his wrongdoings, or might be less shameful of his policies and his wrongdoings and his actions. I think it's likely. I mean, some of the proposed candidates that I've heard of were Rishi Sunak, who he himself has been tainted by the allegations of his wife intentionally not paying, I believe, 3 million in taxes or something enormous like that. And also him taking part in the same parties as Boris Johnson. Although I think now, in comparison with what Boris Johnson has done,
it's like a drop in the ocean.
Those don't seem as big. So he's one potential candidate, and I don't think he's particularly much better than Boris Johnson in terms of the substantive change that he or any other Tory minister would have for this country.
Yeah, and other potential candidates, we have Jeremy Hunt and Sajid Javid. So they previously stood when Theresa May left, I believe.
Yeah.
And now they are potential candidates to stand again to be the next prime minister. Other potential contenders are Penny Moore. Don't know who that is. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
Penny Mordaunt,
yeah,
international trade minister. That's potential. Might need to do some research onto
don't really have an opinion on him yet, to be honest.
demographics of that person. Rishi Sunak, obviously, as you've discussed. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss.
Yeah.
Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Tom Tugendhat. I just butchered his name, but okay. Defense Secretary Ben Wallace, Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi, who has subsequently taken over Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
And Attorney General Suella Braverman. So I might need to do some more research into a few of those candidates, but a few of them we already know about their prime ministerial rulings and their ideals and how they are as a potential candidate. But now moving back to Boris Johnson, so what powers does he still have? So until he officially gives up the office of Prime Minister, he still has the same powers in theory. In reality, he now lacks the authority to introduce any radical new policies. He will still represent the UK abroad and continue to make public appointments or changes to his team of ministers. One of his final acts in office is likely to be awarding knighthoods and appointments to the House of Lords in his resignation honours list. So really and truly, although he does have these powers in theory, he still does need the support of his closest people, which has been lost, as we know. So
he's still in the Tory party.
Yeah. As
so also to do with the new prime minister in October, November, and then also so is that also to do with the head of the Tory party, the people that you just said?
So I believe that those would be running for the head of the Tory party, and since the head of the Tory party is currently the head of government, they'd also be running for prime minister at the same time.
So at the moment, because he's prime minister and he's not head of the Tory party, like how does he make his decisions? And
I think for the time being, he's still the head of the Tory party. That's my understanding, but that's almost acting as an interim head of the Tory party, because he understands that he has practically no power. It's just that he cannot leave his role and leave it vacant for 2 months until they find a replacement.
This country doesn't need a prime minister. Not the best one currently, but soon, hopefully, maybe someone with
a moral backbone.
A moral backbone and sense in general will come. So we have 60 seconds left of the adverts. So any final views, messages, ideas about the current situation? I think what we should do is just hope and believe that our country
Hope for a better future.
Hope for a better future.
Yeah,
This whole
Simply.
sort of show has been about the youth, the future. So hopefully someone is elected to be responsible, at least as a minimum, to
I think the last couple seconds it's
20
important to
seconds.
say to all of the viewers, Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak,
for
absolutely.
Eid in 2 or 3 days, depending.
If you're celebrating Saturday, Sunday, whatever day you're celebrating, have a blessed Eid, have a great Eid. Come down to Lucy Park on Saturday and Sunday. It'll be Inspire Eid, and we hope to see you all there. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.